Hey everyone, Nick Buell here again. Today's quick tutorial is going to be on adding a border to images. I know I keep saying that these are quick tutorials and they end up being 30, 40 plus minutes long. This one should actually be pretty quick and easy. I won't go into a whole lot of explanation of some of the things that we do. I know I tend to like to over-explain some things. Just in trying to keep this one brief, we won't try to rehash some of the other things about why we select certain sizes and so forth, at least not too much. But in case you have not seen the previous videos, I encourage you to go back and look at those, read the notes out on the forums that kind of summarize a little bit, and just follow along. Again, I'm in Photoshop. At some point, I will make GIMP versions of these. Just not sure when. I just want to get these initial ones out there. I think you should be able to follow along pretty well using GIMP, maybe pausing along the way, finding the key combination or the actual tool I'm using. But this one's going to be pretty straightforward. All right, so we have two of our three previous images we're looking at, right? We've totally scrapped the one we looked up, the really bad interstellar one. We're not going to look at that anymore for our tutorials, right? We don't care. It's garbage. So we will be looking at the Toy Story one, which will actually be really easy to do. I'll explain that in a minute. And the Force Awakens one, which will be a little bit more difficult. I pointed out here because of how we add borders and how do we make it so we can make it easy for us to wrap around our frames, know where the edges are, so on and so forth. So let's do the real quick one and easy one first. So here is Toy Story. I'm going to just do Control-0. For me, Control-0 just zooms it out on the screen. This is just to make it a little bit larger for you guys. You don't have to do this. You can do whatever view you have. The reason why this is going to be a little bit easier is we generally add a black border, right? You can add a purple border. You can add a green border. You can add whatever color border you want. I really don't care. It's totally up to you. But almost everybody adds a black border. So in this one, the best part is that we have defined colors, right? We have a bunch of blue and this pink and all these, the Ferris wheel and the grass and everything. So when we add a border, there's a very distinct line between the front image that we want to see and the side borders that we just want to disappear out of our visuals, right? So that's, again, why a lot of people will pick black. But again, you can pick whatever you want. I'm going to use black for this just because, again, that's what most people do, and it's just easier that way. But again, be creative, right? If you want to do something different, do it. Do it. It's all. That's the whole point of this, right? Is it's custom. Do whatever we want. So for this one, what we're going to do is I'm going to assume a couple of things. You are using 1x4 lumber, right? I've talked about that a lot. So 1x4 lumber to do your frames. It's very common. It's fairly cost effective to do. It's not chunky like using 2x4s or things like that. It's lighter weight, relatively straight depending on what you get. And the size is great. It gives you an air gap of 1.5 inches behind a 2-inch piece of insulation. And we've talked about boosting performance and so forth in some of my other write-ups. If you can't do that, again, modify this to however you need to. If you have to use something thinner than that, it just isn't going to work. You don't want these big chunky things on your wall. That's fine. Again, just adjust it. You'll see what I'm doing here in a second. So if we're using 1x4 lumber, which is 3/4 of an inch by 3.5 inches, then I'm going to add a 4-inch border. You say, well, wait a minute, you just said it's a 3.5 inch deep frame you're building. Well, the reason why we want to go that extra 1/2 inch is so that when you go to mount the fabric onto your frames, you line up the image on the front and you stretch it around the back and you staple on the back side of it. When you get your prints, they're going to have excess fabric that is unprinted, i.e. it's going to be white, that's going to be there. And I'm glad there's extra fabric there. I'm glad they don't cut these down to the exact fabric size that we print out, because otherwise we just have to account for that, which wouldn't be the end of the world. But if you have some large image that's really at the edge of what their printing capability is, you can still do that. You can still use this. You still have fabric to wrap around the back. The reason why I say let's print an extra 1/2 inch is because the last thing you want to do is have some calculation be slightly off or have the fabric not quite stretch as much as you thought it was going to stretch. That can be really tricky with some of the fabrics that just don't seem to stretch at all. And the last thing you want to have is have any of that unprinted white fabric kind of peeking out from the back, right? You put this on your wall. Most of our walls are darker in our theater rooms. Now, if it's in your living room or something like that, it might not be as big of a deal. But if you're doing it in your theater room, a lot of people have a darker wall. If you have a black border on the side, also you got this little sliver of white peeking through, you're going to notice it. Now, are people going to say anything? Probably not. But let's just not have it happen. So again, doesn't matter how much you print, as long as it's within the guidelines of the fabric you're using and its sizes. Print as much as you want. You can make these borders. If you are printing something like our images here, 25 0.5 inches wide. You can add a border that puts you all the way up to the 1 yard of 36 inches, right? So you can add basically 12.5 inches of border, total, split in half on the two sides if you wanted to, because you can, and still print just fine. Almost people where it's like, just give me what I need, and that's good. So we're going to add a 4-inch border to this. So I'm going to go up here, and we're going to use our canvas tool again, right? If we use the image tool, it's going to muck around with our image. We don't want to do that. We want to leave the image alone. We want to make our canvas bigger. So image, canvas size, I'm going to click on that. Now, by default, it's going to show what your image size is. And we'll just make the math easy, right? Let's just do relative. The reason why we're using relative is it just blanks it out. Like, we don't have to do math in your head. You don't have to break out a calculator. You don't have to do whatever for what seems like simple math. Trust me, people do this and they mess it up. I've seen a number of people that follow various YouTube tutorials or even the notes out on AVS forums, and they still mess this border piece up. And then you see it in the room, and they've got, an inch of white fabric on the sides of their, towards the wall, of course, but on their sides of their panels. And, I feel bad for them, mainly because of the fact that I offer so much free help for people. I'll just double check what you have or whatever it is. I'm happy to do that kind of stuff. But I just want to make sure this is as easy as possible. Don't do the math. Let Photoshop do the math for you. So we're going to add a border, right? So we went 4 inches all the way around. We need to add 8 inches to the width and 8 inches to the height. So make sure it's on inches. I just put 8 in. That way we'll split that in half, put 4 on each side and 4 on the top and bottom. Don't touch any of these anchors. Leave it right in the middle. Extend canvas size. Well, if we want to have a black border, we're going to select black. If you want to have white, totally cool. You do whatever you want. I don't know why you wouldn't put a border there. Honestly, it's just going to not print anything, so you would just be done without having any border. If you want to do gray, go for it. If you want to have a red border or blue or this kind of a hot pink color, whatever, you go for it. Do whatever you want to do. All right, it's your room. You can do whatever you want. I'm going to use black just because of the fact that is what most people do. And boom, hit OK. And if I do Control-0 again, which in Photoshop just kind of zooms you out till everything fits, there it is. It's done. This one is done. Toy Story, done, ready to go from a border perspective. So we're going to save that. Done. Boom. Anything that doesn't have black on the corners or the middles of the sides are going to be super easy like this, because then you at least have points of reference to line up. This one happens to be colorful all the way around. All right, so we're going to go to the Force Awakens ones. Now this one, again, it's not the same, right? It's not colorful all the way around. It has black most of the way around. You do have some blue over here. You have some red peeking here. There's a little bit of red particles here, and you have actually Kylo's head doesn't quite go to the top. It's close, but doesn't quite reach there. So there's really no point of reference for the corners or most of the sides. And if you just add a border, it would look like this. Here, let me make that a little bit easier. Let's zoom that out to the visible size. It just looks like this. Ignore the slight gray line there. That was an artifact from something else that happened before. But this, you can't really tell where the poster ends and the border begins, except for that little thing there. That wasn't visible until I actually went and created this the border here. So we don't want this, right? This is going to be really hard to line things up. Maybe that's good. Maybe that's what you want. Maybe you say, hey, you know what? I want it to be super whatever, not detailed, so I don't have to worry about anything being exactly right. Me, I like to at least have the option to do it exactly right, and kind of go from there. So let's go back here. So here's the Force Awakens one. So the general idea is we're going to do the same process again, add another step, but we're not going to add a border to this. And here's what I mean by do the same process. So we need to get a blank, not black, doesn't matter what color it is, not black image that's the same size as this poster or what your photograph or whatever you have, right? It can be square, it doesn't matter what the dimensions are, the sizes, whatever it is. But we want something that's the same size as your image that's not black as a starting point. So easiest way to do that is you can go in, you can check out your image size and all this other stuff and create one from new. Easiest way to do it is Control-A, which is also select all, and then Control-C, which is also the same as going to edit, copy, right? So we basically copied this image. Now with Photoshop, if I do a Control-N, which is new document, I'm going to close that for a second, which same thing as doing File, New. it automatically grabs the size of what I have copied currently. So what I've copied is the image here, the Force Awakens 1. There's the pixel size at the dimensions, and the background is white. Remember I said I want something that is not black. Do not change this to black. Just basically anything but black. So I'm going to go with white. I'm going to hit create. That's the exact same size. All right, perfect. Now we treat this like we did the Toy Story one. We have a very opposite of black image here. And we're going to go up to image canvas size. Again, let's do the same thing. Let's make a 4-inch border, right? So we're going to go 8 and 8, 4 inches all the way around. Make sure it's black or fuchsia or whatever color you want to have your borders be. I'm going to do black here. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to go ahead and zoom back out again with Control 0. Again, if you don't want to do that, you want to zoom in and out independently, that's going to be Control plus to zoom in, Control minus to zoom out. I just do Control 0 because it gives me the maximum size automatically in 2 key presses. So this here is the same. The white part is the same size as Force Awakens, right? Because it's Force Awakens at 16.7% view. We're zoomed out a little bit too, so we can see the border on this, but it is the same size. Trust me on that. So now, before we paste that in there, right, because we want to basically paste that on top, we need to somehow use this to create what I call little markers, little corner markers. And for this one, I'll put some side markers on too. Top and bottom probably are okay, but you could put them there too. We're going to do this. We're going to take a pencil that is not black, not white. So basically gray, any form of gray. Don't do a color, do gray. And we're going to put some little markers there. So I'm going to go over here on the left, and this is where I get to pick my colors. The current foreground color with my pencil is black. Go ahead and click that. And it doesn't matter if this shows us red, blue, green, yellow, whatever. It really doesn't matter where it's at. Just be all the way on the left-hand side and just pick something in the middle, right? You don't want to be too bright, but you don't want to be so dark that it's not a big enough contrast. Again, because we're trying to make markers. So I'm just going to pick something somewhere in the middle. It doesn't matter if it's this exact code or not. Just pick whatever. And hit OK. Now change that to gray. I'm going to go up to my pencil tool. If you don't see a pencil right here, click your arrow, and it probably is defaulted to the brush tool. You can use the brush tool. You change it down to 1 pixel, make the hardness 100%. That's totally fine. Sometimes people will have other things set up here too, if they're using Photoshop or other things where they've got some funky paintbrush or whatever, and it's not a solid paintbrush. I just can't promise that at 1 pixel it's not going to do something funky. So I just use the pencil tool. Again, I click and hold and it goes to pencil tool, which again, you can make the pencil larger too, but I'm just gonna make it 1 pixel. It's automatically hardness 100%, right? So that means we're making individual dots, and the hardness means there's no fading, no gradient. It is 1 solid dot of gray. So, all right, now we're gonna use our Control plus again to zoom in, right? Which I believe you can go up to view, and you can use zoom in and zoom out up here too. There's my, see, so there's Control plus, Control minus, and Control 0. 100% is Control 1. I didn't know that, don't use it. I'm going to go ahead and scroll towards the top here a little bit, and I'll show you why. If I zoom in on the middle part, once it hits zoomed in so far, you won't see these little pixel markers. So I'm going to keep zooming in until I see a grid. All right, keep that in focus here. Boom, I've got a grid now. See, there's a little grid there. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more just for the sake of the video. That's pretty big. You don't necessarily have to have it that big. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the edge, any corner, and we want to do this on the black part, right? We don't want to touch our image, right? We want our image on the front to be as good as possible with no markings, or anything on it. So we want this to be on the edge, right? So I'm going to put, it's basically 3 on each side and then 1 in the corner, however you want to count it, a 4 and a 3, a 3 and a 4, or whatever. And that's what we want to do. Let's do that to all 4 corners real quick. So I'm just going to slide over to the right till I get there. Oop, there it is. So I'll put 1 in the corner, and then I'll do, oh, I messed up. End of the world, right? I just clicked wrong. Well, I want to do an undo, which is Control Z in Photoshop and most things anymore. Otherwise, it's under Edit, and you can do undo pencil. It's right there. So anyway, there we go. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And there we go. All right, let's go ahead and grab this guy and go all the way down towards the bottom corner. Same thing, pop 1 in the corner, 1, 2, 3 on the sides, 3 on this side. I know it's pretty repetitive. I actually have a number of these saved as templates, but like I said, I just want to show people how to do this just so they can do it themselves. There are other ways you can mark the corners. This is just really easy. Again, I've got probably a dozen or so templates already of common sizes, but really this is the most common one. But again, you got to be able to do it. You know, the whole point here is to try to do it by yourself. So let's do this. Now we're going to take our slider here. Now my slider on the bottom, if I center it, I'm centering from about where my little indicator is there in the bottom left. If you see this, my mouse down there, centering from there to here. So it's not the whole bottom. So I got to go and say somewhere around there is center, right? And it doesn't have to be precise because again, we're going to come back and we're going to hide these later once we mount them. I'm just going to put 4 markings. You can put 3 markings. You can, whatever. I would recommend more than 2, but don't make it a big line. The more you put there, the more you've got to cover up later. So we'll see. I might be hair off to the right a little bit, but it's going to be totally fine. Again, these are just indicators to help you find your spot for lining things up. I don't know, somewhere around here again. Put 4 marks. Now let's do the same thing on the sides. So the sides, let me grab, oh gosh, I'm just going to guess, right, looks pretty good. Come over to the side, and we'll put some marks there too. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is a good number. Come over to the side. Again, you can pick 5 if you want to. You can pick 3. Just don't go less than 2, and I wouldn't do 6. That's pretty much too much. All right, so now what we've done, I'm going to zoom out. Oh, zoomed in. Zoom out just a little bit more. You see it getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Let's just go all the way out. You can't really even see them here, but we have a marker in each of the corners, in the middle on the bottom and the top, and the middle on the sides. Usually you don't have to have that many. You'll find a lot of things, like there's a Guardians of the Galaxy one I think I went through maybe when I was doing selecting images, where it had a bunch of black at the bottom, but I think there was some coloration in the top, even though it was in space. I think there was like a bluish haze or something like that. So you'd only need to put them in the bottom corners, or the bottom and maybe one in the middle. Usually people can get the bottom lined up pretty well. Bottom and top, or the narrow side of your image. It's the long edges that can be problemsome from time to time. So it really just depends on what's there. So just put them where you need them. I wouldn't go more than that. I wouldn't go more than the corners and a midpoint on each of the side at most. And again, this is only if your image on the front has a black border to it already, or black edge to it. It's just, again, so that you have a point of reference for when you put your image on the front, you know where the corners on, again, these sides. So these markings are on the sides of your panels, not the front. You don't want to see them from the front. You want them on the side. If you're putting them just in the corners, a lot of times they get hidden pretty well just by the fabric folding you do when you're mounting the image on there. But we'll talk about how to get rid of those in a minute. First of all, we have to get this all merged together. So let's go back to our Force Awakens image. So it should still be copied, but we're going to do it again. Let's say you somehow clicked off it. I don't know. You did something and deselected it. Whatever. Let's just do it again. So it's going to be Control A, or again, select all, and then Control C, which is also edit, copy. We're going to come over here, and we're going to do a paste, which is Control V. Oh, one word before you paste it. Make sure that you can see everything on your screen for this image. If you are zoomed in and not dead center, it will not paste correctly. Watch when I zoom out. Look, it shifted it down. It tried to center it based off of where I was on the image. So we don't want that. You want it to be fully on the screen like this. Then when I do a Control V or an edit and paste, boom, it's in the middle. You go, well, wait a minute, Nick. I see a line on the bottom and the right-hand side. That is because we have 2 layers in Photoshop. We have the background layer, which is, let me hide the foreground, which is this. This is our background layer, right? We use that to make our markings on the edges. And we have the foreground layer, which is just the image poster. So when you overlay them, it's just an artifact of how it's doing it. Don't worry, in the final product, it will be fine. So what we want to do next is we want to go to Image. Oh, excuse me, we do not want to do Image. We want to do Layer, and then you're either going to merge down, merge visible, flatten image. Flatten image works great. All these are going to do the same thing for what we're doing. Merge down says take the top image that we're currently viewing and merge it with the layer below it, right? Well, we have 2 layers, so it's just going to merge them both together. Merge visible, we don't have any hidden layers, so again, it's going to merge all of it together. Flatten image, it just takes all the layers and puts them together. Again, we only have 2 layers, so each of these is going to do the same thing. So let's just flatten the image. Boom, those lines are gone. right? Those black lines on the bottom, or excuse me, not black, the lighter lines on the bottom and the right-hand side. You go, okay, well, I don't see my markings, Nick. What are we going to do? Well, let's zoom in a little bit. Let me zoom in. Let's go down. Let's slide over. Oop, sorry, ignore that. I clicked something. Oh, I see something right there. Like I said, these are small. These are small markings. There it is. If you can see that angle, right? You want to see an angle. You don't want it to be just a line on the bottom or a line on the right-hand side. If so, then something's not lined up. But there, you've got, the bottom and the right-hand side. Now let's scroll to the left because we have to verify, because it's black, you got to see the whole thing. There's our middle marker, right? A random middle marker. And if I keep going, and there's our left marker. And you can see the bottom and the left side. So that means that it is centered right to left. We can verify that for sure because we looked right to left. Now we need to verify that it's centered top to bottom. So I'm just going to pick this one here, right? Because if it's down a little bit, it's going to cover up this bottom side. We verified that we can see both the left side here, and then we saw the right side previously. So that tells you that it's not shifted one way or the other, covering up part of that marking. And since it's not shifted down, covering up the bottom marking, we know it's not down too far, but maybe it's up too high, right? It shouldn't be, but let's just double check. So we'll scroll up. We should see our side marker here pretty soon. Actually, if you look here, this red would have made a good built-in side marker. That's why I said some images you don't necessarily need to have anything there because you get enough point of reference. But here it is. There's our side marker for this side, and it's visible. That's good. That's a good sign. Come up here to the top. There it is. And we see the whole thing, right? We see the whole angle, which means that we know we're centered fine left to right because we saw it down below. We now know that it's centered top to bottom perfectly fine because we see this top one here and we saw the bottom one on the other one. But we can keep checking, go around this corner if you want to. There's our top marker in the middle right over here. And keep going, keep going, keep going. And there it is. There's our other corner. So if you see your corners, you're going to also see your sides. There's your other side piece, and then your top and bottom. So we're good. This is it. This one's done. The border is added. We have markers there that we can use for lining things up when it comes time to go ahead and mount these to the frames. And that's it. Done. Done deal. So again, pretty straightforward process. A few more tedious little steps. That's the only thing that made this tutorial longer than what it really needed to be. I think we did the Toy Story one in like 4 minutes or something like that. And the rest of the time has just been going through, watching me tediously place these little markers in the corners and so forth, and explaining the black image with the black side. So again, another option there is say, well, hey, I don't want to ever deal with that. You can pick gray borders for all you want, or like I said, pick fuchsia, or pick, whatever. Pick blue if you want to. It doesn't really matter. You can make it. You don't even have to make the borders solid colors if you don't want to. That's a whole different conversation for some other time. You can do whatever you want. You can make them a gradient. You can do gallery print is what they call it. That's a little bit more tedious. I will not do a tutorial on that, mainly because of the fact that I've only been asked to do it a couple times, and I didn't have the plugin able to do it. There are plugins you can buy to do it. I did it by hand. Gallery print basically this wouldn't be a good candidate for it, in my opinion. It would basically take this is a 4-inch border, so it would take 4 inches coming in and mirror image it. So you'd see it would almost look like a small additional version of the carousel, and the grass would mirror image down, and this side would mirror image over there. And you get this funkiness when you get to the corners, but the sky would just mirror itself up. Not many people do that. It's all right, in my opinion. It's fine. I think it takes away from the impact of the front of the image, but that's my personal opinion. You can do whatever you want. Problem is those usually take plugins to make them work really well and automatic and easy, and everyone wants money for plugins. So yeah, so we won't cover that at all. You can do gradients. You could blend this with a gradient tool. From this case it'd be gray to white, or you can do color in there, whatever you want to do. Be creative. Ask questions. Happy to help. So we're gonna wrap this one up. It's plenty long for a quote unquote quick tutorial. So again, I appreciate everybody sticking with me. Thank you for dealing with my uhs and ums. I say it all the time. I'm not a professional YouTuber. I am winging this. I don't have anything scripted. I just have done it so many times. I just talk through it. So thank you for dealing with any screw ups I made. I could have said something completely ridiculous in the video. Just appreciate your understanding. I am human. If something's blatantly wrong, I will go back and re-record and fix this video. So appreciate it. If you need anything else, search me out. Got the next couple tutorials coming. Take care, everyone.